Let me guess, you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good.
So we'll dive into that. But let's get right into it. Wendy, welcome.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I'm doing well, guys. Wendy Greenlaw with Chandler Reports. If you haven't gone onto their website, it's chandlerreports.com. And what I have learned over the last 2.5 years that you and I have connected is that this information is extremely valuable. It is really a telling sign of not only just our residential real estate market that a lot of people focus on, and that's the main attraction, but in Memphis, the last few quarters, we've been about 50-50 on investment deals and residential deals. So tell us what you got. What happened in Q3 of this year? What
Q3.
Yeah.
The market kind of shifted in Q3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say, it fell, but the number of units sold was down 6% compared to Q3 of last year. And that's the first major decline we've seen in units sold, number of units sold.
And that's with everything, investments and regular residential. Just everything
for
sold.
sale by owner, any residential property sale, condo, single family, whatnot. And then average prices, I feel, are kind of stabilizing a little bit. They were only at 4% from last year. Mm-hmm. So that's the first, I'm not going to say a major decline in number of units sold, but I'm thinking that the housing inventory is starting to have an effect on, obviously, pricing, and then obviously the number of sales that we have. And as we go into, the last quarter of the year when things really slow down, it'll be interesting to see how we end up at the end of the year. And we can talk more about that.
You think we're plateauing from a price standpoint?
I see that we are starting to level out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Those new home sales prices, they kept getting higher and higher. Well, they were virtually unchanged from the Q3 of this year to last year. So that kind of tells us that maybe things are starting to stabilize a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then through the first 9 months of this year, if we're looking at the overall year to date, home sales in the county number of units are just down 1%, so just down slightly. And those average prices are still up 7%.
Okay.
So I think that we're going to hit another record high this year at the end of the year as far as average home sale prices go. We hit one in Q3. This was the highest. We hit almost 180 for the
average
under
80,000.
Home sales price. Yeah. So that was another record high for a Q3 that we've had. Mm-hmm. New home permits were also way down in Q3, 22%.
Why? That shocks me because of the demand for housing.
The demand for housing is there, but I don't think there's anywhere left for people to build. I'm hearing people are trying to go out to the municipalities and kind of not begging for land, but kind of coming up with their own development plans and saying, we need to open up some lots and land in this area. Home sales are down in these different pockets. But
so if you're a landowner, you're in good shape.
Well, yeah, you could be in excellent shape. And then we're seeing a lot of more mixed use type projects coming about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that'll be interesting to going into next year to see what's going to happen with new home sales. So of the home sales that we're recording Q3, we're predicting over 35% were investor purchases. Okay, so when we look at the numbers, it's down slightly. Mm-hmm. Still at roughly 50% of those were out-of-town buyers. 1% of those reside outside the U.S., which is pretty on average. Mm-hmm. Top zip codes with investor purchases, the usual suspects. We had Fraser, Westwood, Raleigh, University, and Oak Haven Parkway Village, which is 38118.
So when you say Westwood, you're
38109. Yeah.
That's become a hot area.
That was number 2.
It's funny how it's moved.
Can you maybe this is an after show question, but I wonder if you can break down if the most of the activity has been west or east of Highway 61 or 3rd.
That I would have to research.
You'd have to look at,
yeah. But I have a list of zip codes that are performing well this year, and that's one of them as far as the number of units sold and average prices. So we can talk more about that in the next segment as well.
Okay.
Top investor buyers, again, usual suspects, REI Nation, Mid-South Home Buyers, and Memphis Investment Rental Properties. And then top sellers, REI Nation, Mid-South Home Buyers, and Memphis Investment Properties. And one major shift, we mentioned it in Q2, and I saw it again in Q3, was the lack of hedge fund activity. So I think I saw about 2 sales in Q3. I saw 0 in Q2. And another interesting fun fact is I'm now seeing hedge funds selling. Okay, so on the top seller report, number 6 is Sabaris. Okay, which is CSMA if you're looking at
How many do they sell?
27.
27
in Q3, which is not a lot. But it's a sign that something's shifting.
That's exactly
And when I went to review them, they were selling them to other investors.
And this is, if I remember correctly, this was a concern of yours from a standpoint of quality of neighborhood and keeping the neighborhood up. I think if I remember correctly,
there's a concern there, but the other concern is when they start selling from Wall Street, does that mean we've reached the peak in our market? Are they predicting something there? Is that a sign of, hey, we've hit the high, let's start selling off some and then keep it,
Maybe.
Or maybe they're just, why are they not buying? The 6 months of no activity is kind of what is glaring to me as, oh, they're putting a hold up. Why? And now why are they starting to sell off?
Well, that's what was going back to that interest rate question. Interest rates are going up, cost of money is
Right.
going up. I think the sales is probably coming. They have so many analysts that they're constantly looking at, like, quote unquote, selling their dogs. I mean, they're not going to stick with something that's not making them money.
Right. But this is the first time we've ever seen them on that list.
At all? Like at all to sell
Right.
anything.
Right. Well, at that level where they're selling enough to get on the top seller report.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, and then the other thing is, from the inventory standpoint, my concern is all these hedge funds and investors, again, own so much, doesn't go back to retail market with a realtor. So
No,
does that keep our inventory low? And inventory has been going up. I don't want to say that we don't have enough. I mean, I don't think we do have enough, but it's still historically low. But, if you go back through the Board of Realtors reports, it's been going up, about 200 homes on average since January. So it is creeping up. But I'll be curious to see in the last quarter of the year, days on market, how long they're out there. I've looked at homes in my neighborhood that are for sale. I think they're way overpriced. I went out and looked at about 20 properties this weekend. I felt they were all overpriced. I'm starting to see people dropping price. So I think people are having a tough time right now because we're in an unprecedented market as far as pricing. I think they're having trouble pricing properties.
Everybody's going for the gold.
Well, then that's what homeowners are doing too. I'm sure they're pushing them into and saying, I could get $250 for this one. No, you could probably get $210.
I tell you what, I've seen some of that.
We have a neighbor that started at, $480, and every week they're just dropping it.
Right.
They got to go because they've already got to the next house.
Right.
They thought they were going to get a quick,
sale at a high price,
and then it happened because somebody's just saying, no, the market, I'm not going to pay more than what we feel it's worth. But
that's hurting them because those people that would have bought at the lower price might have now found something else.
That's
so
right.
that's why I'm curious to see days on market as we go forward. And as I review those that are on the market, just to see how many keep decreasing.
It's funny you said that because we learned that they had somebody that was a backup, and by the time they went to the backup, no, they're going to the next one.
Right.
And so
that stinks.
they keep swindling themselves down. They're going to miss the boat, right?
And from my perspective as a home buyer, like when I see that it's way over, it just turns me off to the whole thing. I don't know why, but I'll just go find something that's more reasonable. And some of them are not way overpriced, but I'm finding a lot are just way overpriced.
Are the agents being educated on this?
I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's an agent issue or the homeowner. If you talk, you're in real estate, you talk to homeowners, they think they can get, X amount, and they're going to push you to do that, even if the numbers don't come back at that. And I'm not getting that many calls. In Q2, I got a ton of calls from agents saying, I can't get an appraisal value on this property. I've got someone who will buy it at this price, but I can't get an appraisal.
I personally called you for one.
Right, but I had a lot of realtors calling me, and I didn't really have any last quarter.
So see that is a strong indication of what's going on, because I had one over in Colonial Acres that didn't appraise.
Right.
It was when I was flipping, and it was really low, like 14,000 low. Now they adjusted,
right,
and we were able to
work out something. Yeah.
But I mean, like the initial thought of the appraiser was 14.5 lower than the sales price. Now I think he just made a mistake because they had initially moved it back up 10 more thousand, but it was still 4,500 lower than the sales price.
Wow.
In a hot area.
Yeah, I remember that one.
I mean, Colonial Acres is hot, but yeah, that's good. All right, what else you got?
So we have 8 zip codes year to date that are having, I would say they're performing well. They have over 10% or higher increase in number of units sold, and they have high average sale price increases. So I can go through those quickly.
Sure.
It's 38106, 38107, 38109, which is Westwood we just discussed, 38112, 38126, which is such a small zip code, it doesn't really matter, but it's a high investor market. Fraser, 38127, and then 38139 out in Germantown.
And repeat, and all of these are
They all have major increase in units and high increase in average price. So that to me would say it's performing well for this year. There's other strong areas like Midtown and University area, but they're not,
Those numbers are a little jaded because the schools are there.
Yeah.
The pricing is a little higher. The rent's a little higher.
Right.
Man. All right. So those zip codes those zip codes you mentioned to me are zip codes that I typically don't take investors to.
Right. Well, 38109 you would, right?
I do there, but 126 and 106, I typically don't.
And 127, you don't do Fraser
Yeah,
that
we'll
much?
do. Yeah, Fraser will do, but
Yeah.
the 126 and 106 is.
Fraser prices are up 16% year to date. It's pretty high.
Well, last show it was like 10%.
Yeah, so it's almost hit 40 on average for the year.
Wow.
It's definitely moving up.
And that's because, like I mentioned before, those investors are paying well above market value, and they're paying cash. They're not getting a loan, and they're overpaying for properties.
Where do you see any kind of move, and you might not have this info, but in rental figures, is the rent numbers moving up or down?
I receive a rental report every week, and it's stagnant.
Yeah.
And I think they said that Memphis has pretty much always been pretty even keel.
That's what attracts investors here. Is
Right. But if you look at like the West Coast and stuff, like people out there are having to reduce their rents to be competitive, where we don't have that kind of issue here in Memphis.
So that's a strong point, for if you're an investor listening out there, depending on where you're buying and what you're buying, it hasn't really mattered. Our rent is staying the same. It's something I've preached from what you've told me. I mean, Dan, you've been buying since 2000 and you haven't seen, huge
Major fluctuations in price. Or
$25. Yeah.
And that's it.
That's it. I mean, it goes up at like the 2008 to 11, we might have reduced 25, maybe $50 in a couple of spots, but nothing.
You're not having to do anything drastic to attract a tenant.
On the like 38127, do you have data that shows investor versus homeowner? And on an average?
Yes.
Like what is an average homeowner
I think
paying?
it's like, an average homeowner's paying probably 25 to 30, I would
25
say.
30, and then an investor's paying an average of 40 plus.
Yeah. I mean, some investors are paying $70,000 for homes in there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and they're not bad properties. They've been renovated. They look great.
Yep.
They've probably got tenants in their paying. It's just from an investor standpoint, they're not getting the return on investment. It's someone who's paying more in line with the market.
And this is an age old, for years we've been talking about this, but I think what happens when they want to sell? Will another investor buy it at that 60 or 70?
Probably. I mean,
and that's why I think the homeowner equation is so critical in that, I think, because if an investor and another investor won't buy it, what will a homeowner? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, but I think they'll be able to find an investor to buy it.
You think so?
I do.
Yeah.
Unless the market really, really tanks and goes.
I'm selling investment houses over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know what I mean? From one investor to another, to another. I have several. I've sold
You're part of the
3
problem,
times.
Dean.
Thank you.
He's part of the
That's right.
You're really crushing our inventory.
But that, right. Yeah. Such a major impact.
Yeah.
I wonder, Fraser's been one of those markets where we've just sat here and just watched balloon from a price standpoint. I mean, I remember when 5 or 6 years ago when I first started doing investment stuff, it was you get some 15 and 20 grand out there. That was fairly livable. You might have to do some stuff to it, but those houses are going for 40 now. Is what you're telling us.
What's funny is, I always, I don't like to use absolutes, but I'm like, I would never buy on 38106. And now people are buying. You're showing data that people are moving to 106. There's stuff.
That's
you
what
sold a couple.
I've sold
they have a 23% increase year over.
It's because that's where the houses are.
Yeah.
Everything else is, a huge portion of 38128 and 127, and all that's been rehabbed, and there's not much churn yet. Now, when the market crashes, something crazy is going to happen, and then people are going to offload.
Are they our big buyers that are buying there? Like our Memphis Cash Flow and all these other guys that are the bigger buyers?
I'd have to look at the figures
and see who's buying there. That would be
I don't think the hedge funds aren't buying there.
The hedge funds are not.
Of course,
but
I would say no, they're not buying anything.
Right, that's right.
Yeah, clearly.
Wendy says they're shut down.
So, from a stabilizing standpoint, and from the hedge funds, and I know you're fact driven.
Right.
So I know you. I know you don't want to go off on two
opinions.
I'll make predictions.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like I know I don't want to put you in bad spots, but what do you? Right. What do you see in the 2019 as far as investors, hedge funds, our overall market? Like, is there, because I know y'all have sat around at Chandler and the daily, Memphis Daily News, and you guys are just
sipping coffee.
We just sit around and talk about this all day.
Eating.
Get our crystal ball out.
Yeah. And you guys rub it, and it's all of a sudden a genie pops out of it and it tells you. But for real, what do you guys look at from 2019? Because we're going to snap our fingers and it's going to be December. And
I
this
know.
whole
Why
thing's
can't
gonna
we
be
just?
over with.
Why can't we just talk about the rest of this year?
Yeah, well, because you pretty much
We've
told
moved
us.
on.
Yeah, I'm already
We're
planning.
You already
planning for
know?
19.
Yes, I have been.
All right.
Yeah, I have been. So I'm trying to figure out, like, are we going to enter 2009? Because our goals, we talk about our goals all the time, and they're doing nothing but getting higher and larger and more expectations from everybody.
And do you have your risk in there with an economic downturn or financial crisis or anything? Do you have
That's what we're waiting on you.
Oh, I'm predicting
you're
that
predicting
now.
that, yeah.
You are literally going
No
to
pressure.
determine how we run our company.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay,
right.
great.
And so
Great. I'll send you a bill for this later. And if
Yeah.
I'm right, I want a little
a
commission.
little more.
Right.
So I'm just trying to figure out, like, are we going to come into a brick wall here in 2019, or is this? I don't think we are from a investment standpoint because of our
I don't
cash
either.
flow and because of our. I don't think that's. I think it can dip, but I don't.
I think we're going to
it's just
continue to see a slowdown, so to speak, as far as the number and volume of home sales.
Is that from hedge funds that are staying out? You think that's what affects it the most?
I think it's the retail market's going to affect it the most, as far as I think so many people are getting priced out of the market right now, and I don't see a slowdown in the pricing, to be honest. I mean, I think we might start to level off, but I still think that it's going to be higher than average or normal of what we've seen in the past.
Do you see any businesses closing, like any of the investment property
Management companies or stuff?
sellers or retail agents? Like with the inventory going down, I would think that, you know what I mean?
Like brokerage firms?
Brokerage firms, real estate
No.
agents.
No.
Everybody's figuring it out.
Yeah, and I go out to a lot of offices and speak and train and stuff, and they're all having record years. So I don't see that happening.
Are they prepping for? Like, are they prepping for something
Like they
different?
did back in 2007?
Yeah, right. I was in that,
Yeah.
man. I'm telling you, that was.
I think everyone's trying to be realistic. I think everyone's excited that we're seeing this, type of revenue numbers coming in. But I think everyone is a little cautious, more so because of what happened, 10 years ago.
I just get nervous when I see when I see interest rates start to creep up. That is a
What are we at? I don't
tell
even know.
sign.
Are we still under
It's,
five,
it's
right?
just under 5 for a 30-year. Yeah, I just looked at that this weekend.
That's moving up though.
No, I know. And like I said, you've got the higher prices. And if you do have interest rates going up, you're getting people out of this market. I mean, they just aren't going to be able to buy, and they'll be able to rent, and investors will have plenty of people to rent to.
Well, and I also think that rising rate is going to take investors that are on mortgages. They've got a large number of homes that might they start selling. They might have to.
But don't they have a lower rate?
Investor loans? No.
Oh, I don't even know what
Investor
they're at.
loans are higher rate.
Depends on what they locked in. If it's Fannie Mae or,
If it's
bank
a 30-year fix, then they're fine. But I mean, if they're on one of those 3-year balloons,
Balloons.
Oh,
Right.
forget it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to get
They'll
out.
have to get out
Or
of it.
foreclose or.
well,
yeah.
that's what myself and a whole wolf pack of investors are sitting here not really waiting on. But I know I've got some investors that are buying now. But I know for a fact that there's some other guys sitting back in the cut waiting on.
Another foreclosure
Yep.
crisis. I think if we have another foreclosure issue in the city, it's going to be investors. I don't think it's going to be homeowners. Right. It's like standard
Which to
owner
me
occupied, I should say.
is good. I know that sounds weird to hear.
I think it's awful, but
I know you do, and
Yeah.
Why do you think it's awful?
if investors are foreclosing on their properties,
Mhm.
even though they have the money to pay for them and sustain them, because sometimes they leave them
I
vacant,
see what you're saying.
and then sometimes they don't properly take care of it. It'll sit there for months until the bank finally takes it back, and then there's no one living. It deteriorates your neighborhood, and then the values go down again.
But then we'll buy them and fix them up
Then
again.
we'll buy them and fix them up. That's what I.
Right, you buy them at a lower rate. And then right, yeah. So we're just
We're started over.
start over.
It's a
I don't-
vicious cycle, but
I'm not sure. Yeah. This
It
is a
makes
good
me
debate.
angry. It makes me
I can
angry
see
when I
the
see
anger in your
investors.
face,
When
like-
an investor forecloses on 30 properties, yet they're still making a lot of money in our community and they're still doing really well. That kind of upsets me. Yeah.
that's somebody behind a
From a
desk in a big city
moral
making
standpoint.
a decision from here. That's right.
Well,
Because they have they have no.
But I made my money,
concern.
like, just-
yeah.
It reminds me of a story back in 08, 9, like where we were just trying to hammer it out because it was a rough time, when
Right.
paying our notes like we're supposed to. And we'd hear guys that, to your point, they were filing bankruptcy.
Right.
Same type of stuff we had,
Mhm.
filing bankruptcy, getting the judge to lower the value and lower the payment to the banks just because they were in distress. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
So I get it.
That's working the system.
That's
for
working the
sure.
system. Yeah. And over here, we're all, paying our notes and just trying to keep
doing the right thing.
trying to do the right thing, and
Right.
just paying like you're supposed to.
And knowing it's going to turn around and you'll be able to
yeah,
get out of
long
it.
term, you'll be fine. But
Right.
so I get what you're saying. I think that's,
We saw a lot of investors walk away from properties
back then.
in
Yeah.
2008, 2009.
The good thing is, I will say from a banking standpoint, there's not many banks that allow an investor just to own houses without professional management.
Right.
That's it. That's a shift.
Not now, for sure.
There's banks that we deal with that want us to be preferred provider for management because they know if they loan to you and they say, well, you can only use a preferred bank, and they only have one preferred property manager,
Mhm.
and we're one of those. They know if you foreclose or you let the house go, at least the rents are still coming. We can secure the house. You know what I mean? Like there's action that can be taken versus 10 years ago, people would just throw up their hands and they vanished.
Well, and then, or people would still be living there. The bank's coming knocking on the door to kick them out. They're like, what do you mean I'm being evicted?
Right.
What do you mean the house foreclosed? I just had someone in Nashville call me about that. His son got evicted.
So the positive spin for our investors on this is if that happens, the tenants aren't going anywhere. We've talked about
There's just
that.
more opportunity for them to get into the market at a lower rate.
For another investor to come in and buy that and get it occupied. It is sad. I hear what you're saying because, I mean, if you get into that community, then there's plenty of them in Cordova and Arlington, and there's areas where, if there's 100 houses in the community, 40 of them are rental properties.
Right.
And if they're all probably owned by two companies, if one of those companies decides to file that bankruptcy for that certain, that's why.
I don't see a hedge fund I really don't see a hedge fund doing something like that.
No, but I see them selling off.
I see them selling off, which they are selling off to other investors. I don't think they're going to have a problem selling off in this market, do you?
No.
Like, if something tanks or something happens,
If
we'll
there's
have an issue.
$110,000 house in Arlington or Cordova, or they bought it for 120, 130, and they want to get rid of it today for 90, I can get rid of it in 10 minutes.
Right.
Because the rents are so high, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 rentals. I mean, I could literally, there's people listening right now that if they knew they could get a $1,300 rental for $90,000, $100,000, they'd buy it today.
Right.
So I don't think, and to your concern, I think that new investor would come in and maintain and try to keep up that area. Now, where I do get nervous is where some of these guys are building new construction communities only for rentals.
Right.
Now that could be a problem.
I don't like that.
I think that's I think it's a terrible idea to buy in those, because for that very reason, you got everyone that lives in that whole neighborhood has no ownership.
Right, but
no pride of ownership.
But people want to own new homes, so why wouldn't they just sell them off to people that want to buy a new home?
Well, because the condition of them might not be as a
renter.
Yeah, they've been there for 3 years.
But they're paying a higher rate, so.
Yeah, I can resell it to an investor. It'll be really tough to get those investment properties over to a retail buyer, because they're going to come in there and they're going to see the
condition
knocked up and banged up from kids. It's just But another investor will scoop it up. So that's what I'm concerned. Like the one streets and the one communities that are all investment that they're built for rent.
You think you'll think they'll fold?
Those will fold, I think, before the other communities that are mixed with homeowners and mixed with others. That's why I've never advised a client to go into one of those communities. No, not when it's all that.
Think about, and this is a duplex, so keep that in mind. But like Eastport, Wingate, all those off of Chuck. Mm-hmm. Like when somebody just built rows and rows of duplex. Anytime you think about just duplexes all on one street.
It's terrible.
It's not a good move.
38118 has plenty of it.
But I have a ton of duplexes I own, like where it's houses, couple duplexes,
right?
And then
scattered.
They're scattered. They're surrounded by people that
there's stability around them.
People that care. They're going to call me when that tenant leaves an abandoned car. We're going to hold people accountable more versus a whole street. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if you do that with the whole community, with new construction, it's going to be okay for a while. Mm-hmm. It's just over time that's going to. It's starting to get better, but Northwood Hills up there off of Egypt 128 Egypt Central. Do you know where that is?
I don't.
It's new construction. And back
everything about this city, but if I
don't know where anything is,
where it's at,
don't ask me where
don't
it is.
Ask you.
Just tell me the zip code.
We're going to have to get a map out and just put it up here for you.
Stick it up here for Wendy.
But it was new construction, but it tanked back in the 08 and 10. So we bought a lot of houses back in there.
Yes, I do. I know the area you're speaking. I don't know where it is. I couldn't drive there right now, but yes.
Roll Run, those streets like that. Mm-hmm. And so we bought a lot of houses, but we went through a rough period in that subdivision because it turned into all rentals.
Right.
versus all the homeowners had to flee. Does that make sense? And the builders were leaving.
They're gone.
Well, they were filing
houses-
bankruptcy.
Yeah,
And
they were
getting
filing
out
bankruptcy.
And,
So
right, couldn't sustain it.
there's houses that were halfway done, and so that would created kids that were setting fires. I mean, shooting. I mean, it was crazy for a while.
We had a banker friend that said, "Man, once a week I get a guy come in here and brings me a Ziploc bag full of keys and just drops them off."
Wow. Because that many people were walking away.
In 2008, 9, yeah,
Yeah.
they're done. They just couldn't afford the payments. Here,
Gotta go.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm out.
That's sad.
funny.
Well, Wendy Greenlaw, I appreciate you coming in here
Yeah,
today.
thank you.
This is always helpful information. It really gives our investors a clue of what's going on here, not just with the with investment market, but with residential, which can influence one or the other. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I swear I can't get enough listening to